Blessings, blessings. Welcome to Power Fuel Living. I'm your host, Lisa Hooks, and I am so glad that you decided to join me today. Today, I am starting a series, The Characteristics of a Strong Marriage. Yes, we are going to be talking about that for the next few weeks. Today, as my first guest, I have Debbie Cunningham. And here's her bio. Debbie Cunningham is a recording artist, a songwriter, author, speaker, and host of Midlife Crescendo podcast. She is known as a powerful and engaging entertainer. After spending more than a decade in the music business, she published her first book, Dancing in the Kitchen, Hope and Help for Staying in Love. Here it is. And she is sharing her stories behind the songs of her latest album, A Million Kisses. The strategies for couples to build love that lasts even when life is challenging. Yes, and life can be challenging. Let's welcome Debbie. Hello, Debbie.
Hello, Lisa. So good to see you.
Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited about this new series. I believe you have a great deal of experience. In your bio, it says that you and Derek are married, you have children, but you also have grandchildren.
Yes, we do.
Grandchildren are so much fun.
It's the icing on the cake, Lisa.
Yes. So tell me a little more about yourself, Debbie.
Well, Derek and I have been married for 36 years. It'll be 37 this June. And we have, of course, 2 adult children and 2 grandchildren. But we were high school sweethearts. And we dated for 5 years. And then we went through college. And then we got married. And so we have a long history.
Yes, yes. I am so excited. My husband and I were high school sweethearts as well.
I know. I love that about you guys.
Yes. So I am so excited about this series because we're going to be talking about characteristics of a strong marriage. Now, you have been married 36 years, you dated 5 years. What, in your opinion, is the very first characteristic of a strong marriage?
Oh gosh, the very first characteristic, there's so many.
Yeah.
But I would say continuing you fall in love, you get married and then you have this long relationship and you get bumps in the roads and life is hard. There's a lot of mundane in life and intentional kindness
Mm,
is really, really important, especially as you've moved into maybe a few years down the road from the honeymoon season. And intentional kindness, trying to be kind. Like if you think about it, when you first started dating, you went out of your way to do sweet and kind things for your boyfriend or girlfriend, whoever.
yeah.
And the point is that but in marriage we lose that because we get used to each other, we become roommates a lot of times because we're not really cultivating romance and all those things. But the very first thing I recommend is just intentional kindness, going out of your way to do a kind thing for your spouse to lighten the load. That they've actually I just read an article the other day that confirmed that those are the kinds of things that actually make your relationship last. Things like maybe fixing the coffee or lightening the load of your spouse, doing something without drawing attention to it, but
Yeah.
just doing it because you actually want to make their day better, doing the dishes or running that errand out of kindness in your heart. It makes a huge difference.
You said intentional kindness.
Yes.
We can be married to a kind spouse. We can have a kind spouse, but being intentionally kind of raises the bar
Yes.
because that means sometimes when we don't feel kind, when we feel like we're just going to do whatever we used to do, when we get comfortable with our spouses, that intention to be kind will make a difference. I really appreciate that. I like that. What's your next one?
Well, my next one is forgiveness, which forgive the small stuff. Because girl, I know it could be hard. And there are some big things. I'm not talking about the big things, when there's been just just big things you need to forgive in your marriage that you need to go to counseling for. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about all those little things that push your buttons and get on your nerves. Like how far is the sink from the dishwasher? Like just don't put it in the sink. Just put it right in the dishwasher. I always say that because it's one of those my pet peeves. But really, we can allow those things to build resentment in our relationship if we just harp on that and forgiving the small stuff. And this is a technique that I learned years ago. When you're allowing those things to get on your nerves, number one, think about if that other person had 6 months to live, would this thing bother you so much? Or would you think, oh, I'm sure they just forgot, or they're just off their game right now, and I can forgive this and overlook. Love covers over a multitude of sins. That's what
Yes.
scripture says. And okay, not loading the dish in the dishwasher is not a sin. However, it can annoy us so much. And if we allow a lot of annoyances in our relationship, it can crush the life out of a marriage. Just those little things. And so if we learn to forgive daily those little things and focus on the good and positive things, that makes a big difference, I think.
Forgiveness is so very important. So very important. I know that I have had to forgive. My husband has had to forgive, and even in relationships, sometimes we do something that causes offense. I'm reminded
Yes.
when Peter asked Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive? 7 times? And
Yes.
Jesus said, no, 70 times seven. So forgiveness is so very important. God is a God of love.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when we love each other, a lot of times we can also hurt each other. And so forgiveness is a good measure to take, even when you don't feel like you're wrong. Sometimes
Correct.
asking for forgiveness will solve a matter.
Right, and forgiving the other person before
Yes,
they've asked for forgiveness. Because here's the thing, I'd like to remind couples, your spouse is married to you're married to a sinner, but so is your spouse,
yes.
right? We a we all need daily forgiveness, let's just be real.
That is so good. All right, what's your next one?
Number 3 is really probably should be number 1, but prioritizing love and prioritizing fun and laughter.
Oh, yes.
Because here's the thing, this is so important. In fact, it should be number 1. It's crucial. But you gotta start I always say intentional kindness because you can start to melt the ice if you're intentionally kind. And if you're struggling in your relationship, it's actually hard to have fun.
Yes.
However, if you don't have fun, it's a real problem in your relationship. And I'll tell you why. When you are dating, you go out of your way to do fun things. Actually, your whole falling in love experience is based on fun because you go on dates, you do fun things together. You go out to dinner, you might go bowling, you might go see a movie, you might have another hobby that you enjoy together that you do all the time. Every time you connect with that person, you are having fun with them. And here's the science behind that. I recently learned why this is so important is that the hormone oxytocin is the hormone of love and connection. So when you're having fun with your spouse, that's binding you and bonding you to your spouse or to your kids if you're struggling with your kids. Speaking of relationships, really important to have fun with your teenagers. If you're struggling with them, put the struggle aside, call a truce, go have fun doing something they want to do, right? That they find fun. Engage with them on their level. Same with your spouse. Your husband really wants to go to a game and you don't really enjoy basketball or football or whatever it is, go anyway and enjoy it with him. And that will bond that there's a bonding experience, laughter, going to a funny movie, watching a funny comedian. Those are the kinds of things that elevate that hormone because if you're having fun with people other than your spouse, you're bonding yourself to them. And that is often how affairs start. You're not having fun with your spouse, but you're having fun with other people. Not to bring it overly serious, but it is serious. It's really important that we're cultivating having fun with our spouse and building that relationship and that building that oxytocin hormone, which is a connector. It's literally physical in our bodies. I never knew that. I just knew it was important to have fun. And so it's fascinating that all of that is connected. So it's really important. And it's hard sometimes, let me say this, when you're going through a difficult season,
Yes.
it can be hard to have fun. Lisa, you know that, right? We've talked about this. And Lisa is in my book. So she and Kenneth, they have a little whole chapter to themselves. So, but it can be hard, right? And you guys started dating. Do you mind me flipping the
Yeah, go ahead.
camera back to you? You guys started making intentional fun by taking dates on, right? And putting that in your schedule. I
Yeah,
love that.
date night is very important to my husband in particular.
Yeah.
Every week he expects us to have date night. And I have learned to appreciate that.
Yeah.
I have learned that it's important to him, so it needs to be important to me. And now we have fun. We go bowling, we go skating, we go to a movie. I mean, we have done a lot of different things that we have not done since we were dating in high school.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, life can be challenging, marriage can be challenging, different things come in and out. And sometimes you can have a mundane marriage to a degree.
Exactly.
And you're
Exactly.
not, and when you're not engaging in fun activities, games, even at home.
Yes.
I hear a lot of people say they can't do date night because they don't have a sitter, a babysitter. Well, make your date night a family date night,
Right.
right? And,
Right.
and when your children go down to sleep, catch a movie.
Exactly. And even if you're going through a hard season, it's even more important to
Yeah.
find ways to have fun. And for an example from my own life, and we cover this in the book, but our daughter had open heart surgery when she was 3 years old. And then we did not know if she was going to live. I was pregnant with my son at the time. It was overwhelming. I started to have chest pains. We weren't really connecting. It's not that we were at odds with each other. We just weren't connecting. There was so much stress in our relationship at the time. And so I went to my doctor just to make sure I wasn't having heart problems. And he said, "You were just under so much stress." And he said, "You and your husband need to have fun together." And I'm like, okay, my daughter's facing this huge life or death surgery, and you want me to focus on fun? And he said, "You have to have fun together to keep this connection." I thought it was brilliant that he gave me that advice because it wasn't about the physical, it was about the emotional connection that we had. And it made the stress, it lifted the intensity of it at the time. And it really helped us to learn to have fun, watch a funny movie, enjoy the company of friends that made us laugh. That's another thing. Couples can go out with other couples. It's a really, really important piece of a long lasting relationship.
It sounds like you had a great doctor.
Had a great doctor.
A lot of doctors would not have recommended that.
I know.
So glad that you had one. And you're right. When you are having a difficult situation, whether it's family members, whether it's personal, when things become hard, you must think, okay, how can we stay connected? How can we stay involved? How can we stay engaged with each other?
Exactly.
And so I'm so glad that fun, fun, fun. Yeah, I recommend fun, guys. I recommend it. Even when fun means accommodating
Yes.
or submitting to your spouse. Because a lot of things my husband likes to watch on TV, I don't necessarily like it, but I will sit in the same room on the couch maybe. Now, sometimes I'm playing a game on the phone or something like that. But my husband enjoys me being there, being in the presence. And so I really have learned, and my husband does it too. He accommodates what I want to do. And a lot of times we have fun. A lot of times it becomes fun for us. So that's a good point. So, what is another characteristic that you believe is great for marriages?
Well, I say use a little football strategy. And if you don't like football, you can say basketball or any other sporting event, but this resonates with guys. But, you know, I was in the grocery store one day and I heard a man talking to a friend and he said, "Oh, my marriage is a little like this football season. I keep hoping it's going to get better and it never does."
Oh, goodness.
And I was so taken back by that comment because I thought, well, you can't just sit on the sidelines and wait for something to get better. You have to be intentional. And in football teams, winning games are not made by sitting on the sidelines and waiting. They use strategy. They use they look at the team members and they look at the strengths and the weaknesses and they utilize the strengths to accomplish a common goal. And I say you need to start thinking that your husband or wife is not your enemy. We all have a common enemy. We know that that's the devil. But your husband or wife is on the same team and you are working together to accomplish long-term love. You're working together to accomplish your life's goals and dreams together. You're working together with a common goal. And sometimes we look at our spouse and see our spouse as our enemy or our opponent instead of our teammate that we're working together to move the ball down the field. And so if you're intentional, you need to have those huddles where you talk with each other like, what are your hopes and dreams here? What are the goals you want to pursue in our marriage and in our life together? And how can we help each other make those things happen? See, so to me, that's another communication element, of drawing together and instead of assuming what your spouse thinks or assuming what they want, let's have some conversation and strategy meetings to think about how we can enjoy this game of life together and make those things happen and hit some goals.
Yeah, conversations, strategy meetings, communication is such an important part of a marriage. What do you say about communication?
Yeah, it's really important. I think everybody communicates differently,
Okay.
and we need to learn to not react. One of the things I talk about in Dancing in the Kitchen is about when you're wanting to communicate something that's difficult, besides praying and asking God to help you not be um, offensive, but to bring it up in a non-defensive way, we need to talk about hard things sometimes, though. You can say, hey, when you say this, I feel. Because you know what? Feelings are feelings. They're neither right or wrong. And that's a good place to start. Hey, when this happens, I really feel disrespected. Or when you don't listen to me, or when you don't do that thing I asked, it really makes me feel like I'm either invisible or I'm not respected by you. Can we have a conversation about that? Because it takes away this defense, where you're attacking. Never say you always, you never, because it's not actually true. Okay. You might feel that way, but it's not true.
Communication, learning how to communicate well with your spouse can be something that you grow into.
Yes.
Miscommunication is a hard topic for marriages
Mm.
because when they communicate, they think they're right, they think they're telling the truth, and it's that way. But a lot of times there are nuances that have to be dealt with. I heard a marriage mentor, say that there was a study of couples arguing with each other. They were in this office and they were arguing with each other. And so after they calmed down, they asked the couples to write down what they said and then write down what they heard. And both of those things were wrong.
And isn't it amazing?
That's
It
so amazing to me. Yes.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
A lot of times, unfortunately, couples speak out of their feelings, but those feelings may be anger or
Right.
frustration. What do you say about speaking out of anger or frustration?
Well, I say take a time out and don't speak out of anger. If you're feeling yourself getting angry, try to step away from the conversation and say, you know what? I'm feeling over emotional right now. Can we just take a pause and I'll talk about this later in 5 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you need. There's no time limit on this. I mean, we feel like we have to have this decision in the moment because we're getting frustrated or angry. But the other thing is think you need to give space for the fact that we perceive things differently as human beings because there's a whole your whole life leads to the way you process information. All the things you've been through makes you the person you are. And so sometimes this happened recently, and I can't even remember what it was. We were out with another couple. My husband said something. He didn't mean it the way I took it. So in the car later, I was a little incensed at the moment. Like, why did you say that? But I didn't say that at the time. We got in the car and I went, hey, so when you said blah, 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 I felt like you were saying this about me. And he went, oh, that's not the way I meant it at all, but I perceived it that way because of all the things that make me who I am and all the experiences I've had. And sometimes I'll say something that he takes the wrong way. And it's the stories we tell ourselves. We assume something about somebody else. The biggest thing I say is do not assume. Get curious, ask questions. Okay, you just said this thing. I'm curious, what did you mean by that? Or uh, because this is the way I took it. And usually right then and there's an immediate diffusal of that anger frustration instead of allowing yourself to get angry. And the other thing is, if you do step away, don't rehearse this in your head and let fuel to the fire and just that it gets bigger and bigger. Take the facts, remove your feelings, and then just have a discussion. That makes it so much easier if you can
So
just do
much
that.
easier. Yeah. And so that's what I normally have to do with couples who come into my counseling office, because unfortunately a lot of couples come in when they're at the very end of their rope, when they're talking divorce, and unfortunately they argue in the office, and I have to say time out, time out. I'm calling a timeout, and I have to teach them that when I say time out, they need to stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stop talking. However you're feeling, stop talking, and then process those feelings, and then we can continue. But we normally continue after I have asked a question. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I am so glad that we're having this conversation. Debbie, is there anything else? Is there one more characteristics that you would like to share?
Yes, celebrate what is good.
Oh, yes.
Life is hard and you're always in process, and even if you're going through a hard season, you need to take time to celebrate milestones and anniversaries or good things that are happening in your family and enjoy those moments together. I have a dear friend whose wife had MS for 15 years, and it got to the point where they couldn't even go out for an anniversary.
Mm.
But he said they adjusted their expectations and they still celebrated what was good, that they had each other. And then he would order takeout, bring it home, and they would just enjoy it there. And they would watch a funny movie or do something else that they enjoyed together because she couldn't walk anymore. She was in a wheelchair. And he said, it made a difference just to celebrate what was good. And so I always encourage couples to celebrate how far you've come. If you're in process, and even if you have a long way to go, celebrate the good and enjoy that. Make that a priority.
That is so good. You know, the Bible tells us to speak life, to speak life, to speak health, to speak healing, to speak good, not death. Death can create more death. We don't want to create death. We want to speak life. So, celebrating what is good. You know, when I think about my husband and some of the conversations we have when we talk about high school and when my son was young, and we start laughing, you know, I mean, and that feels good. It
Yes.
feels good to laugh. It feels good to celebrate. And like you said, they made adjustments to their expectations,
Yes.
which I firmly encourage any of you, if you are having some type of issue, make adjustments to your expectations and continue to celebrate the good that is going on in your life. That is so good, Debbie. Wow. And so, if you had anything else that you would like to share, what would be the last thing that you would share with the people?
You know, in Mark, there was a father who said, Jesus said, "Do you believe?" And he said, "I do believe. Help thou my unbelief." And I believe that every marriage can get better as we submit to the Lord, as we pray and ask Him to lead us and guide us and give us wisdom in what actions to take. But if you both will humble yourselves before God and seek His intervention and His solutions, I really believe you can have a deeper, more fulfilling relationship. So the first place I always start, of course, is prayer and asking God, and then following Him in that, and then doing what the Word says, to forgive, to not focus on the speck in your husband's or your wife's eye, but to focus on the plank in your own. I mean, there's so many things in the word. We just need to be applying God's word as we're going through these things. And I believe new life can be birthed in that, in your relationship.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for joining me. And thank you for joining me for Power Fuel Living. Please join me next week as we continue our series on characteristics of a strong marriage. See you next week.
Power Fuel Living is a media outreach of Power Fuel Living Ministries. For more information, contact www.powerfuelliving.com. Power Fuel Living is funded by friends and partners like you. Thank you for your giving.